Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here, coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be reviewing Mass Effect Andromeda. Now, I'm going to be basing my review on the PlayStation 4 version because that is the version that I received for review purposes from Electronic Arts. So let's get started. As per usual, with all of our reviews, we're going to get right into visuals and animation. And to be quite frank, the visuals and animation is very divisive for me when it comes to Mass Effect Andromeda, because quite basically, I think that whenever I'm in combat, whenever I'm running around in the world just doing random stuff or even doing quests and stuff like that, I actually think the game looks visually really good, and it animates really well in the middle of combat and all that stuff. I think that all of that portion of the game works really well. And it animates really well, and I like the effects and all the stuff that happens while I'm shooting or casting abilities or doing all of these other things. That's all well and good, and I really like it. I have to be honest. I like the visuals. But then, whenever you get into a cutscene, which, let's be honest, when you're talking about a Mass Effect game, there are quite a lot of cutscenes because there's a lot of emphasis when it comes to interacting with characters and stuff like that. I'm not going to get into details about the previous Mass Effect games, but anyone who knows what Mass Effect games are all about, you know that a lot of your time in the game is not just about the combat, it's also about interacting with other characters. And whenever you are in those are what I consider a cutscene, so to speak. So it's like, let's say you go up to a character that is giving you a side quest and the game happens to do a close-up. That, to me, I'm considering that a cutscene of sorts, okay? Just to give you guys a frame of reference whenever I'm talking about cutscenes so that you know what I am talking about. And in those cutscenes, the visuals are okay. They're not the best. And worse is obviously the animation. On a lot of the game's cutscenes or conversational sections, whatever you want to call them, the animations are just plain bad. There's no other way to put it. It's like I basically had to accept that so that I could move on and continue playing the game. And it was really disappointing because like I started playing the game and I was having a lot of fun. Then we see the first cutscene and I'm like, well, okay, it's not as polished, but maybe it's just this one cutscene, and it's not. It's actually a majority of the cutscenes, at least when I played it. Who knows? When you're watching this review, maybe a patch has come out, but I don't know if that is going to be the case or not. So I'm talking about information that is available as of the recording of this video. But yeah, the cutscenes were real rough. Now, having said that, it's one of those things where it's like, if you're someone who pays a lot of attention to visuals, this is really going to bother you. If you're someone like me who wants to focus more on the gameplay and on the overarching narrative of the game and all that kind of stuff, it bothered me the first couple of times. After that, it just kind of like my brain lowered the bar for cutscenes, and I want to say it didn't negatively, obviously it negatively impacted my experience. What I want to say is it didn't like completely threw me off every single time. However, even after I kind of formatted my brain in a way that's like, okay, it's a cutscene's happening, you know that some weird shit's gonna go down. Sometimes it would even manage to surprise me. Like, we will talk more about some of the bugs in the game and stuff like that, but I'm gonna, specifically in cutscenes, I had at least one cutscene that I remember where there was an additional copy of an NPC that was interacting in that cutscene, and he was also clipping through a table. And it was really weird. And I've heard other reports from other people that they see this happen all the time. To me, it hasn't happened that much, glitches of that nature, but I've seen some really horrendous stuff when it comes to some of the cutscenes. I've seen characters warp all over themselves. I've seen characters not rendering properly. So yeah, the cutscenes have some serious issues. But like I said, we're talking visuals in general. And again, this is why I said it is a mixed bag. So it's like, because when you're going out on a planet, you're in the Nomad, the car that you get to explore planets in, it feels great. Just going through the Nomad, the visuals of the planet, sci-fi, futuristic stuff, the buildings, the mountains, the enemies, the monsters, all of this stuff that shows up, in my opinion, looks great. When you're in the middle of combat, doing all of your abilities, firing your guns, doing all of these things, it feels great, it looks great. And then it's like whenever there's a cutscene, it doesn't look that great. And then to top it off, I also ran into a couple of performance issues, which hopefully those are going to be easier to patch. Because at the end of the day, they are using the Frostbite 2 engine, and according to reports that I've heard, Battlefield 1 is actually pretty well... I don't know if it's Frostbite 2, actually. It's Frostbite something, whatever the current iteration of Frostbite is. But I've heard really good reports about Battlefield 1 on the PlayStation 4, so hopefully they can optimize the game a little bit to solve some of these performance issues that I ran into, because when I went back to one of the first planets that you go to, it was nearly unplayable. Those of you who have been watching my live streams, you guys know what I'm talking about. Speaking of those live streams, by the way, the full playthrough will be uploaded onto the channel. I'm just trying to not just dump like 10 videos at once into the channel feed, because it's going to be completely crazy, so I'm trying to buffer them in, but I will be uploading the full playthrough of Andromeda for those of you that want to check that stuff out. And now, still on the topic of performance, something that really surprised me. Now, as you guys know, I have a PlayStation 4 Pro, which when I'm live streaming, I still have to do it in 1080p because I don't have the ability to capture in 4K. But I did test out what the game looked like in the 4K mode, which I don't know if it's actual 4K since I don't really have a way to measure what resolution is going out through there, because basically what happens is games will have a certain native resolution, and the PlayStation 4 Pro will upscale them all the way to 4K from there. So I don't know if the native resolution is 4K. I know that it is definitely more than 1080p because it looked better. It looked sharper than 1080p when I loaded up in like 4K mode. But what I noticed was that not only the visuals were even better because it benefits from HDR and it looks way better. Like, you guys know me, I'm an HDR fanboy, so whenever a game supports HDR, I like checking it out. And it's just Mass Effect Andromeda looks really good with HDR on. And again, looks really good in those scenes where you're fighting, when you're doing stuff. Not necessarily in the cutscenes, doesn't improve that much. But yeah, in 4K mode and with HDR on, game looked even better. But the more important thing was that the performance was better, and that really surprised me. I'm like, so you're telling me this game performs better at a higher resolution than at 1080p? Kind of feels to me like there are some performance issues that really need to be solved there. But yeah, that is my take on the visuals and animation side. And I know that it is, like I said, it is a mixed bag, and maybe you guys were expecting something a little bit more concrete, but this is all I can really tell you because this is my opinion on it, basically. So moving on to sound and music, the combat sounds are pretty good. I like the fact that sometimes you will do like I want to say a spell, but it's actually like a biotic thing or whatever that kind of generates this field, and then you go close to the enemies that you're fighting, and then you see that some of the sounds have been muzzled because of this vortex effect that's going on. Basically, it's got those really, really sweet sounds that we've seen in the Frostbite engine before, pretty much since Battlefield, I want to say Battlefield 3. Pretty much since Battlefield 3, the Frostbite engine has been amazing me with the quality of its sound, and when it comes to Mass Effect Andromeda, in my opinion, it does not disappoint. The combat sounds are good, all of that stuff, pretty good. The voices themselves are okay, again. Whenever you get into the performance part and the performance part by like the close-up stuff that happens with the actors and stuff, that's when I start, and that's where the game kind of starts to fail a little bit, in my opinion, because some of the voice stuff is perfect and it's fine, and then some of the other voice stuff is delivered a little bit more awkwardly. And there's also some stuff about the writing, which I will talk when we get into the story. But I just want to say that in terms of voices, it's a little bit of a mixed bag, kind of like visuals and animation. But yeah, the combat sounds are pretty good. The music is decent, but I kind of felt that the previous Mass Effects did a better job with their music. I also felt that you had more music in the other Mass Effects than on this one. I feel that on this one, a lot of times you're just walking around and there's no music. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people called that out during my streams. They were saying should be more music in this game because the previous titles had really good music. But yeah, that's my take on sound and music. So now let's talk about the story. And in my opinion, the overarching story, the main theme of the game with your character being a pathfinder and all that, I liked it. I know that there's a lot of people out there that said they didn't like it because this, that, or the other. But personally, I liked it. I enjoyed the main story of the game, and I had a lot of fun exploring Andromeda as the Pathfinder, because there are a lot of options that are given to you. I mean, basically, a lot of all of the Mass Effect games have this, because you can react in multiple different ways to the situations that are presented to you. And I always found there was a way in which I wanted to react, myself, in the way that I was shaping my character, whom I named Khan Ryder, which I thought was pretty cool. But there was always a way in which I felt was appropriate for me to react to what was being played out on a certain scene. And yeah, I liked the story. I'm going to give you guys just a quick take on the story without spoiling too much. Your character is going to be a Pathfinder. He is responsible for negotiating with all the different factions because of things that happened on Andromeda that I can't really explain to you. But you are the main person responsible for negotiating with all these people and establishing relationships and doing all these things in order to gather everyone to work together towards a common goal, which I will not tell you what that common goal is at this point, but you guys will find out if you want to play the game for yourselves. But ultimately, I thought, the story appealed to me personally, because I have this thing, you guys know about me, where I just like to explore stuff, and I like to kind of get lost in worlds, in the world of a video game. And Mass Effect Andromeda delivers on a lot of aspects when it comes to that kind of stuff. You get to explore multiple planets, you get to explore multiple systems, and you get to do a lot of quests. As a matter of fact, we will talk about some of those quests further ahead. However, even though I really liked the story, I felt that the writing sometimes would fall a little flat because certain events would take place, and let's just say there's a big event that happens. Most people already know what it is, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. In the first hour or so of the game, a pretty important event happens for your character. And that pretty important event, let's just say your character becomes upset about that pretty important event that happens, right? And then, like 5 minutes after that event happened in game, there's another character just like, oh man, I hope there's a bar so that I can get some champagne and celebrate the fact that we just won this fight. And I was just like, dude, do you not realize what the hell just happened? Like the character just kind of ignores this major event that just took place, and he's just concerned about celebrating and having a good time, And that was, one of the things that kind of annoyed me. That same character later down the line also delivered a really bad joke about how someone was going to die. And in a very joking manner, this character just delivers that line, and I was just like, this is no joking matter, dude. I was just thinking to myself, this doesn't make any goddamn sense what this character is saying. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes the writing fell a little bit flat in that regard, but to balance things off, there were also a lot of situations in where my character was able to completely nail down what I wanted to say. Not getting into specifics, once again, it's kind of hard to talk so much about the story without getting into specifics. There was this situation where my character was facing off against an antagonist, and I had this dialogue choice that I was given, and I hit the dialogue choice, and I kid you not, my character literally said, well, I am going to fuck your shit up. And I just love that. And you can call it juvenile, you can call it whatever you want, but that was exactly the sentiment that I wanted to bring to that exact moment into the game, and I just loved the fact that my character actually said that. So again, a bit of a mixed bag. Sometimes falls flat with some of the dialogue that takes place. Other times it reaches these really high notes that I really, really enjoy. So again, it's a mixed bag. It could have been better, but at the same time, whenever it hit those high notes, sorry, my voice is a little bit tired from all the live streaming I've been doing, but when it hits those high notes, it really, really gets me in it, and I'm just really like immersed in there. Also, the dialogue choices that you get throughout the story, I believe I've mentioned this already, but the dialogue choices, I always have fun with those those are just great times. So again, story overall, really enjoyed it. Writing could have been better on certain spots, but again, not enough to really turn me off to the main story and how much I enjoyed that. So now that we've gone through visual, sound, and story, let's talk about the gameplay. So, in my opinion, combat in this game is great, and it is a lot of fun. And most importantly, even so, actually no, not most importantly, because like most important is obviously the combat being fun and the stuff that you can do in the combat using the different spells and using the different weapons and stuff like that. All of that stuff is great and is a lot of fun to engage in combat in Mass Effect Andromeda. But one of the things that I really, really liked about the system is that you can actually respec. And I know that there were a lot of people that were on the fence about the fact that you could change and use all of these different points. You could be tech, you could be combat, you could be biotic, and you could change it all around whenever you wanted to. But I gotta tell you guys, it really works. It really works well, because I remember when I was playing Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3, and I remember seeing some of the choices and some of the powers that I would see in other characters, and I was like, man, I wish I could try that out with my character, but there's no way I'm going to do that because I can't respec. So I need to continue investing down these specific powers that I've been doing since the start, because that is what's going to make my character powerful so that I can advance into the game. And I never actually got to experiment with all those other things that could have been a lot of fun, but I never knew because, you know, I was kind of min-maxing a little bit so that my character would be viable and powerful by the time I reached the end. And in this Mass Effect, I think I switched my build about 6 or 7 times. You guys can see for yourselves on the live stream and stuff. I switched builds multiple times, and it was basically a case of me thinking, oh, I kind of feel like I want to try this thing now. Guess what? I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to try this new thing. So I started out as a biotic with the basic pull and throw, and I think I put charge on there as well just so that I could move around. From there, I changed everything, and I got a build that actually had points in every single tree. So it had like a concussive shot from combat. It had, was it throw or was it pull? I think it had pull from biotic. And then it had Incinerate from Tech, which allowed me to do all kinds of crazy combos combining those 3 powers, as well as a bunch of passives from each of the trees and stuff. And it gave me a special profile because, I don't know if you guys know, but in this game, you get different profiles, which kind of work like the classes in the original, not the original, but in the trilogy Mass Effects. You would be able to select, okay, I want to be an Adept, so I focus only on biotics, or I want to be a Vanguard, so I focus on biotics and combat. In this one, depending on the points that you invest on each of the tech trees, they give you profiles that you can choose. So as soon as you get points into combat and into biotic, you can then choose, I want to be an adept, or I want to be a soldier, or I want to be a vanguard, or maybe there's even others. And if you combine all 3, you can be that I think is the Pathfinder profile or whatever. But there's lots of profiles that then completely change the way that you can play the game. They change the bonuses that you get for each of your skills. And experimenting with all of that stuff and doing the multiple builds without being forced to re-roll a new character, in my opinion, was super fun. And you guys know me. You guys know that I enjoy doing different builds and experimenting with different things. And I was able to do that a whole lot while I was playing Mass Effect Andromeda, and it was really, really fun. Then, obviously, like I said, combat super fun. A lot of the gameplay time is also spent running around in the Nomad, going through the planet, exploring the planet, mining resources, and finding different things in each of the planets. And, you know, driving around the Nomad is fun. It's not particularly special. You're just running around the Nomad exploring stuff and whatnot. They did a couple of things to kind of make it more interesting, because the Nomad can, I don't remember what the Mako could do, because like Mass Effect 1 was ages ago for me. But this car does not have a weapon. I believe people complain a lot because the Mako had a cannon or something. This car does not have a weapon. What this car can do is it's got a turbo boost, and with the turbo boost you can kind of like obviously get a boost, and it allows you to maybe climb a little bit steeper terrain, as well as gain some speed and momentum. It also has some jump jets that allow you to jump a little bit if you want to like try to really use the car to climb mountains and stuff. I've been able to use all of these things in conjunction to kind of get the Nomad to places where maybe it wasn't supposed to be. And then there's another thing that toggles between 4-wheel drive, which is faster, or 6-wheel drive, which has better traction so that you can kind of like actually go up mountains and do stuff like that. So it is, how should I put it? Driving it around is an active thing that you do. It's not just like, okay, I'm going to hit the gas and go to wherever I want to go and I'm done. You actually have to, like, depending on how the terrain is, you have to shift between 4-wheel drive, 6-wheel drive, do jumps, do boost, and use everything at the appropriate time. So it becomes a bit more enjoyable driving it around than if you were just like, oh, I'm just going to hit the gas and go. It becomes enjoyable to be able to use all those things to navigate the terrain, but ultimately it also becomes quite a bit repetitive because a lot of your time on some of these planets is spent on the Nomad. As a matter of fact, repetitiveness is definitely something that Mass Effect Andromeda suffers from. A lot of the side missions are quite repetitive. The terraforming missions, which you will be able to terraform planets in Mass Effect Andromeda through some story things that happen that I'm not going to tell you. But let's just say some stuff happens that allows you to terraform planets. And then the problem to me was that obviously if I can terraform planets, I want to terraform as much as I can because, I mean, we're basically bringing humanity to this Andromeda system, so we're going to need these planets to be habitable and terraformed so that people can actually live on them. So, you know, it kind of became one of my objectives to terraform as many planets as possible, and that becomes kind of repetitive because essentially you have to go to 3 pillars, do some puzzle-like things on those 3 pillars, and then you have to go to like this central thing on a planet and do a mission there. And all of these central things, which they're called vaults in the game. I guess calling them vaults is not a big spoiler. All of these vaults kind of look the same. I mean, sure, they're different. Their layout is different. The enemies you encounter in them might be somewhat different. But ultimately, their visual aspect is very, very similar. And I wish it was, you know, there was more variety with that kind of stuff. Because, I mean, particularly if you're someone like me who's trying to terraform all the planets, basically it's like, you know, you land on a planet, you're like, I already know, there's 3 pillars on this planet, I gotta find them, and once I find the 3 pillars, I do the 3 puzzle thing, then I go to the vault, and then boom, I terraform it, and then shortly after you do a couple of more side quests, and you can get yourself an outpost on that planet. And that stuff, you know, the first time I did it, I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then the 5th time I did it, I was like, just let me put my outpost already so I can get back to the main quest. So yes, that stuff was repetitive. But at the same time, there's also some side missions. Actually, I don't know if those qualify as side missions. I'm talking specifically about the companion missions, you know, the ones that you do to increase the loyalty with your companions and stuff. Those missions, a lot of those were actually really memorable and really, really fun. So, you know, again, a bit of a mixed bag. There's some good and some bad. I do feel that Mass Effect suffers a little bit from the MMO syndrome when it comes to questing. Because a lot of its quests feel like MMO quests, like these side quests I'm talking about. It's like, go here, kill 10 things, go there, scan 2 things, go, you know, these kinds of quests that we can kind of dilute down to just do this thing. However, whenever you're doing missions, whenever you're doing the main story missions, those are awesome. And the dialogue choices that you get during those missions are amazing. And when you're doing companion missions, those are, you know, a lot of those are also really, really fun. And like, there's this one companion that I didn't like from the start of the game, and his mission is going to be engraved into my memory for the longest time because it's just like that particular mission had so many good things going for it. And you guys that some of you that are watching this video might have watched me on my streams. You guys probably know which mission I'm talking about because I was having so much fun with it. So again, a bit of a mixed bag. It's like almost everything about this game feels like a mixed bag. There's some stuff that is really, really good. And then to balance it off, there's some stuff that isn't nearly as good. Or sometimes even that much fun to engage in. Which also caused me to basically at some point start skipping side quests. Because I'm like, I don't want to get another kill quest to kill 10 things. I want to explore this world. I want to figure out what's going on. I want to see what the politics are behind the faction that is operating in this world. I don't want to, like, figure out why this person doesn't know how to get something, and I have to like engage in these menial affairs. Like, I'm the goddamn Pathfinder. I do whatever I want. I'm trying to save mankind, and you're talking to me about how I need to go over here and kill 2 people because they're bothering you, you know? That kind of stuff. The scale of the game just kind of goes all over the place. As a matter of fact, as a result of that, a lot of times there would be these dynamic encounters because there's multiple factions in the game, and sometimes roaming through the planet, you will encounter some of these factions engaged in firefights, and I would be going through because I would be on my way to do some quest or some terraforming thing, and I would see these factions engaging in this really vicious firefight, and I would just drive right through. Sometimes I would run over a couple of them on my way there, on the way to my quest, but one thing's for certain, I would never stop unless I specifically felt like engaging in combat, which, you know, usually I would only engage in combat for my main quest and the stuff that I was actually interested in. So a lot of times I would bypass these firefights, and then one thing I noticed is that on certain planets you would go through the same spot like 3, 4, 5 times, and these guys would still be out there. There would be a ship coming in, dropping them in, and they would be engaging in that same firefight for the entire time. And I just like, okay, you guys keep on shooting yourselves and have fun with that. I'm gonna go do my thing and not worry about whatever the hell you're doing. So there was some of that. And then, you know, beyond just actual planet operations, you can actually fly your ship. I mean, and by fly your ship, I mean you select the planet and your ship takes you there. But basically you can go around through space and you can scan different planets and get materials from them and stuff like that. And that kind of stuff I felt was a bit boring. Particularly, like, I remember this one system that I went to I took my ship to that one system and I was like, okay, let's scan this system, get some materials, get some experience out of this system. And I scanned like all the planets and I got nothing. And then eventually I found like a satellite or something, got a couple of materials. But it's like, this system, let's say, had 5 or 6 things that I could interact with. And only one of those things actually gave me something. And in between each of these planets and, you know, whenever you're flying around, you actually get this animation of you going to the planet. Like, they actually film like in first person the ship moving over to the planet, zoom into the planet, then back off, and then you start doing your scanning thing. And then you're like, okay, I came to this planet. Let's say there's like a 20-second animation that brought me here. I didn't find anything. Let's go to another planet. There's another 20-second animation where you're just waiting around for your ship to go from one planet to the other for you to get there and then not find anything again. And that is not only somewhat boring, but it can also get somewhat frustrating. And now that we've talked a little bit about some of the gameplay, I'm going to be giving guys my overall thoughts, but first, specifically for Mass Effect Andromeda, I have to mention some of the bugs because the game, on top of all the stuff that I said was a mixed bag, also has quite a few bugs. So quite a few times I got stuck in geometry of a level. That means that basically my character would not be able to exit a location that I placed my character in a place. Like, I fell down something or whatever, and I would not be able to leave, so I would have to like reload the game. I would often get stuck on death screens. What does this mean? So say your character dies. After you dying, usually a screen pops up that says, okay, do you want to continue? Do you want to load another save? Or do you want to quit the main menu? These are usually the 3 options that you get when you die. So what would happen to me is my character would die and the menu wouldn't appear. So the game would think that I'm still alive and it would continue running even though my character was dead, so I couldn't do anything. That happened way more than it should have. And another time I think I also fell through the world, but then again, falling through the world happens on a lot of games. One time I actually turned the planet sky black. Don't ask me how I did that, but yeah, that happened, and not even restarting the game fixed it, which was really weird. But eventually the planet's colors came back, so I didn't have to look at that planet black for the rest of my life, thank God. But yeah, the game has quite a few bugs, which in my opinion leads me to believe that this game was somewhat rushed through production so it could leave in the March period because of all those quarterly result things and whatever that I don't really care about. quarter one, quarter two. I don't pay attention to any of that shit, but I believe that is one of the reasons why this game was a little bit rushed through production. And one of the things that I said is that this game could really use 6 more months to apply additional polish, because even if the cutscenes weren't that great, if they were more polished so that it wasn't as bad as it is right now, I don't think nearly as many people would have complained. Because let's be honest here, guys, the first Mass Effects had a lot of problems as well. I think a lot of people right now are also looking at the original Mass Effect trilogy with rose-tinted glasses, and they forget that there was also a lot of stuff in those games that was not perfect. We simply dealt with it because that is the Mass Effect experience, and it is a very unique experience that you can only get in these games. And that is kind of why I dealt with all of the issues that I found in Mass Effect Andromeda and still managed to find quite a bit of enjoyment in the game. Again, this is a personal opinion. Some people might think otherwise, but that is how I feel. So overall, my experience with Mass Effect Andromeda is a bit of a mixed bag. A lot of the game I really enjoyed, such as the story, the main missions, some of those companion missions, the couple of first times that I terraformed planets, the first times that I scanned planets. Those were all fun and good. But then once the game kind of starts applying that repeating pattern to some of those activities, like the terraforming of the planets, like the scanning of the planets from space, and even some of these fetch quests and kill quests and all this other stuff, go here, scan 2 things, go there, scan 3 other things. Once the game started applying repetition to those activities, that's when it starts to lose me, and that's when I started skipping side quests. And even the other day I was talking with Globko, and Globko actually told me that he found this side quest that was a lot of fun, and I completely skipped that side quest because I thought it was just going to be another kill quest thing, and so I completely ignored it. So yeah, overall, my take on Mass Effect Andromeda is that if you really can't wait to play some more Mass Effect Andromeda is going to give you some good stuff if you're able to deal with all the problems that I've mentioned in this review. If, however, you think that these problems will really, really affect your experience, then you have 2 choices. You can either wait until the game is lower on price, at which point maybe some of these things have also been patched out, or maybe there's additional content patched in. Maybe there's some stuff that they do that will be actually, maybe they'll fix some of the cutscenes, maybe they will do all of these things, but that's a big maybe. So if you think that you have to play Mass Effect, you might want to either wait until this gets discounted, or if you really can't wait to play it now. Just be aware that there are some issues that you will have to deal with. Having said that, like I said, I still enjoyed the story. The final moments in the game, in my opinion, were really, really epic. And even the cutscenes in the final moments, I felt like those were far more polished than 80% of the other cutscenes that I engaged in the rest of the game, which felt kind of weird. And I also want to say that it felt to me that all of the quests that I did, because a lot of the quests, like I said, I did a lot of stuff. Like I did all of the companion side quests, I did all of the terraforming quests, I established outposts on as many planets as I possibly could. And I want to say that that influenced my ending because a lot of characters came showing up, characters that I interacted with in the other planets in the final moments of the game. They came like showing up with their army and stuff. And because you all know there's going to be something big happening at the end of Mass Effect games. There always is. And all of these characters that I had interacted with throughout the game kind of came showing up. And it was kind of a cool reunion moment to witness them all working together towards a common goal. And I really, really enjoyed the ending of it. So all of this stuff that I said about mixed bags and stuff, it was ultimately not bad enough that it kept me from enjoying the game. But at the same time, I understand that there are some people who are just not as tolerant as I am, which is why this stuff, which is why I mentioned all of this mixed bag stuff and whatnot. Hopefully this wasn't too confusing. The gameplay that you guys were watching in the background is probably not going to be directly related to what I was talking about because, I can't just like re-record everything that I've done to put on a review. And also, for those of you that watched this review all the way up until this point, I'm curious about something, because a lot of the times I see in the comments since I've started doing these reviews, people constantly ask me to score games. Now, I'm not going to score Mass Effect, and just like I haven't scored any of the reviews I've done so far. Because I just want you guys to know that I personally don't like scoring games, because I think that I just don't like the concept of scoring games. Okay? I really don't like it. But having said that, I see that a lot of people request that. And since I'm doing these reviews, if a lot of you guys really need to have that number assigned to a game, I guess from this review forward, I can start doing that. I just need you guys to tell me in the comment section if that is something that you want. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hitting that like button helps out a lot. Subscribing if you're new also helps out, and you're also notified whenever I am streaming on Twitch, or whenever whenever I release a new video. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.